Mummers plays are folk plays performed by troupes of amateur actors, traditionally all male, known as mummers or guisers. It refers particularly to a play in which a number of characters are called on stage, two of whom engage in a combat, the loser being revived by a doctor character. This play is sometimes found associated with the sword dance, though both also exist in Britain independently. Mumming spread from the British Isles to a number of former British colonies. It is sometimes performed in the street, but more usually during visits to houses and pubs. It is generally performed seasonally or annually, often at Christmas, Easter, or on Plough Monday, more rarely on Halloween or All Souls Day, and often with a collection of money, in which the practice may be compared with other customs such as those of Halloween, bonfire night, wassailing, paysegging and first footing at New Year. Although the term mummers has been in use since the Middle Ages, no scripts or details survive from that era, and the term may have been used loosely to describe performers of several different kinds. The earliest evidence of mummers plays as they are known today is from the mid to late 18th century. Mummers plays should not be confused with the earlier mystery plays. Etymology: the word mummer is sometimes explained to derive from Middle English mumma, Greek momo, but is more likely to be associated with early New High German mummer and vermummen, which itself is derived from or came to be associated with mummen and mumshans, these latter words originally referring to a game, a throw of dice. Overview: mummers and guisers plays were formerly performed throughout much of English-speaking Great Britain and Ireland, spreading to other English-speaking parts of the world including Newfoundland and St. Kitts and Nevis. There are a few surviving traditional teams of mummers in England and Ireland, but there have been many revivals of mumming, often associated nowadays with Morris and sword dance groups. These performances are comparable in some respects with others throughout Europe. Broadly comic performances. The most common type features a doctor who has a magic potion able to resuscitate the vanquished character. Early scholars of folk drama, influenced by James Fraser's The Golden Bough, tended to view these plays as descendants of pre-Christian fertility ritual, but modern researchers have subjected this interpretation to criticism. The characters may be introduced in a series of short speeches, or they may introduce themselves in the course of the play's action. The principal characters, presented in a wide variety of manners, are a hero, most commonly St. George, King George, or Prince George, and his chief opponent, known as the Turkish Knight in southern England, named Slasher elsewhere, and a quack doctor who comes to restore the dead man to life. Other characters include Old Father Christmas, who introduces some plays, The Fool and Beelzebub, a Little Devil Doubt. In an Medway near Swansea, groups of 4 boys dressed as CRWMPYN John, Indian Duck, Robin Hood and Dr. Brown took the play from house to house on bonfire night and were rewarded with money. Despite the frequent presence of St. George, the dragon rarely appears, though it is often mentioned. A dragon seems to have appeared in the Revesby Ploughboys play in 1779, along with a wild worm, but it had no words. In the few instances where the dragon appears and speaks, its words can be traced back to a Cornish script published by William Sandys in 1833. Mumming groups often wear face-obscuring hats or other kinds of headgear and masks. Some mummers' faces are blackened or painted. In 1418 a law was passed forbidding mumming plays, interludes, or any other disguisings with any feigned beards, painted visors, deformed or coloured visages in any wise, upon pain of imprisonment. Many mummers and guisers, however, have no facial disguise at all. Mumming was a way of raising money, and the play was taken round the big houses. Most Southern English versions end with the entrance of little Johnny Jack, his wife and family on his back. Johnny, traditionally played by the youngest mummer in the group, first asks for food and then more urgently for money. Johnny Jack's wife and family were either dolls in a model house or sometimes a picture. History. Mummers and guisers can be traced back at least to 1296, when the festivities for the marriage of Edward I's daughter at Christmas included mummers of the court, along with fiddlers and minstrels. These revels and guisings may have been an early form of mask, and the early use of the term mumming appears to refer specifically to a performance of dicing with the host for costly jewels, after which the mummers would join the guests for dancing, an event recorded in 1377 when 130 men on horseback went mumming to the Prince of Wales, later Richard II, according to German and Austrian sources dating from the 16th century. During Carnival, persons wearing masks used to make house-to-house visits offering a mumchance, a game of dice. This custom was practiced by commoners as well as nobility. On Shrove Tuesday of 1557, Albert V, Duke of Bavaria, went to visit the Archbishop of Salzburg and played a game of dice with him. A similar incident involving an Englishman is attested for the French court by the German Count and chronicler Froben Christoph von Zimmern. During Carnival 1540, while the French King Francis I was residing at Angers, an Englishman wearing a mask and accompanied by other masked persons paid a visit to the king and offered him a mumchance. While mumchance was played not only by masked persons, and not only during Carnival, the German word mummenschanz nevertheless took on the meaning costume, masquerade, and, by the 18th century, had lost its association with gambling and dice. Other than this association, here is no clear evidence linking these late medieval and early modern customs with English mumming. Textual evidence. Although there are earlier hints, the earliest complete text of the Doctor play appears to be an undated chapbook of Alexander and the King of Egypt, published by John White in Newcastle upon Tyne between 1746 and 1769. The fullest early version of a mummer's playtext is probably the 1779 Morris Dancer's play from Revesby, Lincolnshire. The full text is available online. Although performed at Christmas, this text is a forerunner of the East Midlands Plough Monday plays. A text from Islip, Oxfordshire, dates back to 1780. A playtext which had, until recently, been attributed to My Law in Cornwall by E. K. Chambers, has now been shown, by genealogical and other research, to have originated in Truro, Cornwall, around 1780. A play from an unknown locality in Cheshire, close to the border with Wales, dates from before 1788. Chapbook versions of the Christmas rhyme of the Mummer's Own Book were published in Belfast, c. 1803 to 1818. A mummer's play from Ballybrennan, County Wexford, Ireland, dating from around 1817 to 18, was published in 1863. It is from the 19th century that the bulk of recorded texts derive. Mumming, at any rate in the south of England, had its heyday at the end of the 19th century and the earliest years of the 20th century. Most traditional mummers groups stopped with the onset of the First World War, but not before they had come to the attention of folklorists in the second half of the 20th century. Many groups were revived, mostly by folk music and dance enthusiasts. The revived plays are frequently taken around inns and public houses around Christmas time, and the begging done for some charity rather than for the mummers themselves. Local seasonal variants. Although the main season for mumming throughout Britain was around Christmas, some parts of England had plays performed around All Souls' Day or Easter. In northeastern England, the plays are traditionally associated with sword dances or rapid dances. In some parts of Britain and Ireland, the plays are traditionally performed on a near Plough Monday. These are therefore known as plough plays, and the performers as plough jags, plough jacks, plough bullocks, plough stots, or plough witches. The plough plays of the East Midlands of England feature several different stock characters. Tradition has it that ploughboys would take the plays from house to house and perform in exchange for money or gifts. Some teams pulling a plough and threaten to plough up people's front gardens or path if they did not pay up. Examples of the play have been found in Denmark since the late 1940s. Ireland. All known Irish play scripts are in English, though Irish custom and tradition have permeated mumming ceremony with famous characters from Irish history: Colm Killer, Brian Boru, Art McMorrow, Owen Roe O'Neill, Sarsfield and Wolfe Tone. The mummers are sometimes referred to as wren boys. The main characters are usually the Captain, Beelzebub, St. Patrick, Prince George, Oliver Cromwell, the Doctor and Miss Funny. The Derby Tup. Around Sheffield and in nearby parts of northern Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, a dramatised version of the well-known Derby Ram folk song, known as the Derby Tup, has been performed since at least 1895 by teams of boys. The brief play is usually introduced by two characters, an old man and an old woman. The tup was usually represented by a boy, bent over forwards, covered with a sack, and carrying a broomstick with a rough, wooden sheep's head attached. The tup was killed by a butcher, and sometimes another boy held a basin to catch the blood. There is a Sheffield version where the tup is killed and then brought back to life by the Doctor. This is the main play performed by the Northstowe Mummers based in Cambridge. The Old Horse, an OWD play, another dramatized folk song, was also known from roughly the same area in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Around Christmas, the custom persisted until at least 1970, when it was performed in private houses and pubs or on New Year's Day. A group of men accompanied a hobby horse and sang a version of The Old Horse, a poor old horse, which describes a decrepit horse that is close to death. The past hour sword dance. In 1831, Sir Walter Scott published a rhyme which had been used as a prelude to the sword dance in past hour, Shetland, in around 1788. It features 7 characters: St. George, St. James, St. Denis, St. David, St. Patrick, St. Anthony and St. Andrew, the 7 champions of Christendom. All the characters are introduced in turn by the master, St. George. There is no real interplay between the characters and no combat occur, so it is more of a calling on song than a play. Some of the characters dance solos as they are introduced, then all dance a longsword dance together, which climaxes with the swords being meshed together to form a shield. They each dance with the shield upon the head, then it is laid on the floor and they withdraw the swords to finish the dance. St. George makes a short speech to end the performance. Other kinds of mummies. Feast entertainers. Mumming was used as a means of entertaining at feasts and functions. Particular mention is made of one feast where 150 torchbearers lead the same number of mummers in, who would do acrobatics in a variety of costumes, including animal costumes. Social mumming. At certain feast days, a lot of the populace would put on masks, and in practices that vary with geography, celebrate the day. One practice in example was for a group to visit a local manor, and sing out the Lord. If the Lord couldn't match verse for verse the singing group, then that Lord would have to provide amenities. The formation of roving mumming groups became a popular practice so common it became associated with criminal lewd behavior, as the use of masks allowed anonymity, and in the time of Henry VIII became banned for a period. Aristocratic mumming. On documents such as receipts and bills from the late medieval come details of mumming parties organized by English monarchs, Henry VIII being known for taking his court mumming incognito. Later, Henry would ban social mumming, and bring the mask, a form of entertainment, to England. Newfoundland mummers. Mummering is a Newfoundland custom that dates back to the time of the earliest settlers who came from England and Ireland. It shares common antecedents with the mummers' play tradition, but in its current form is primarily a house-visiting tradition. Sometime during the 12 days of Christmas, usually on the night of the Old Twelfth, people would disguise themselves with old articles of clothing and visit the homes of the friends and neighbors. They would at times cover their faces with a hood, scarf, mask, or pillowcase to keep their identity hidden. In keeping with the theme of an inversion of rules and of disguise, cross-dressing was a common strategy, and men would sometimes dress as women and women as men. Traveling from house to house, some mummers would carry their own musical instruments to play, sing and dance in the houses they visited. The host and hostess of these mummers' parties would serve a small lunch which could consist of Christmas cake with a glass of syrup or blueberry, or dogberry wine. Some mummers would drink a Christmas grog before they leave each house, a drink of an alcoholic beverage such as rum or whiskey. One important part of the custom was a guessing game to determine the identity of the visitors. As each mummer was identified, they would uncover the faces, but if the true identity is not guessed, they did not have to unmask. The custom has recently enjoyed a revival, with the Mummers Festival taking place throughout December 2009, which even included workshops on how to make hobby horses and rent sticks. Philadelphia mummers plays were performed in Philadelphia in the 18th century as part of a wide variety of working-class street celebrations around Christmas. By the early 19th century, it coalesced with two other New Year customs, shooting firearms, and the Pennsylvania German custom of bell snickling. Through the 19th century, large groups of disguised working-class young men roamed the streets on New Year's Day, organizing riotous processions, firing weapons into the air and demanding free drinks in taverns, and generally challenging middle and upper-class notions of order and decorum. Unable to suppress the custom, by the 1880s the city government began to pursue a policy of co-option, requiring participants to join organized groups with designated leaders who had to apply for permits and were responsible for the group's actions. By 1900, these groups formed part of an organized, city-sanctioned parade with cash prizes for the best performances. About 15,000 mummers now perform in the parade each year. They are organized into four distinct types of troupes: comics, fancies, string bands, and fancy brigades. All dress in elaborate costumes. There is a mummers museum dedicated to the history of Philadelphia mummers. Mummers in fiction. Thomas Hardy's novel The Return of the Native has a fictional depiction of a mummer's play on Edgone Heath. It was based on experience from his childhood. Leo Tolstoy's novel War and Peace has a depiction of mummers, including Nikolai Rostov, Natasha Rostova, and Sonia Rostova, making house-to-house visits. They are depicted as a boisterous crowd dancing and laughing in outrageous costumes where men are dressed as women and women are dressed as men. Music. There are several traditional songs associated with mumming plays. The calling on songs of sword dance teams are related. The singing of the travels by the Simmonsbury Mummies appears on Sadisc CD SDL 425. English customs and traditions, along with an extract from the Antrobus, Cheshire, Soul Cackers play. It also appears on the World Library of Folk and Primitive Music, Volume 1. England, round a 1741 CD, cut number 16B. The singing of the Travels was also recorded by the Silly Sisters. Silly Sisters, Tacoma Tax 7077 LP, cut number 6. Her Calling On song by Steeleye spanned from the first album Hark! The Village Wait is based on a sword dancer pace egg play Calling On song, in which the characters are introduced one by one. The Mummers Dance, a hit song from the album The Book of Secrets by Lorena McKennitt, refers to a springtime traditional mummers play as performed in Ireland. England in Ribbons, a song by Hugh Lupton and Chris Wood, is based on the characters of a traditional English mummers play. It gave its name to a 2-hour program of traditional and traditionally rooted English music, broadcast by BBC Radio 3 as the culmination of a whole day of English music on St George's Day 2006. The Mummers song, performed by the Canadian folk group Great Big Sea, but originally written by the Newfoundland folk band Simani, is an arrangement of the traditional song The Mummers Carol, which details the mummering tradition in Newfoundland and Labrador. A hip-hop version by M.W.A. was released in 2014. Mummer is the title of a 1983 album by the English rock band XTC.